Let's try that again. Good morning, everybody. It is Sunday here, and I've had a crash on the layout to start the day. Anyway, this is sort of an unscripted, unprompted little live stream that I want to try to make a little bit of a habit of, and that's just simply to jump on here early in the morning on a lazy Sunday, and I offer you some company and you offer me some company, and that's how we move forward. I see in the chat that Dundas Junction got ahead of everybody else about 14 hours ago and jumped in to be first. So congratulations, you get whatever prize it is we give out for these things. I think it's a Timbit or a cookie at this point. B.N. Ironwood, thank you very much for joining me this morning. And Pine Valley Railroad, Matthew Harris. Good morning, everybody. So I've actually been down here for the better part of an hour already, and I've been still working on some of these retaining wall pieces. The journey never ends, it seems, with these things. Sorry. But yeah, I'm going to actually move on to working on the inside of the station area behind me. I thought that it would be I would like to finish the inside of the station because as I start building up the city on top of it, I'm probably going to neglect that area forever. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the lid off of the station platform and bring some of the stuff down here and start working on it. Danny, I leave for Mass at 10 a.m. No problem, James. I appreciate you coming by for a few minutes anyway. One of the fun things I have done, though, today is I have set up a project cam. And so rather than see what my hands are up to, I am going to be running some trains this morning. So I am hoping that this will give you a second view to look at. So I'm going to just put this back on the layout. I'm going to fix a stuck train, and we're going to get back to work on the area behind me here. So let's move back over to the train cam. All right. Get this retaining wall back in here. And lock the other one in place. There we go. And then let's see if we can't get these locomotives rolling again. And so one of the GO Transits should be coming into view any second now, as it rolls down what I'm going to call the Bathurst Fly Under. Yep, looks like it's going. Good morning, Kraus Rails. Good morning, Pat Smith. And then at the same time, the VIA unit should be pulling through Aldershot Station, which you will be seeing towards the bottom of the screen. And there it goes. So yeah, we'll see how that setup works. I don't understand how some people have what seems to be like 11 webcams and they can film the entire layout while they're working on a laptop. I don't have that many USB ports, and even when I use USB hub, I still don't have enough USB ports. So I need to speak to some of these master streamers and figure out how they pull all this off. Good morning, Pine Valley. So yeah, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to start working on the interior of the station over there. And I had this profoundly embarrassing realization about how, I've been cutting pieces, these little wood pieces, and you saw them maybe in the last time, and I glue them on to the styrofoam risers to make my retaining walls. And I'm trying to be efficient with the wood, but there is quite a bit of waste, and I try to keep the waste samples and try to figure out something cute and small I can cut out of the remaining parts. And I was literally sitting down last night and taking a look at the design because I needed to run some more pieces for the inside of that. And I realized that they're all symmetrical, which means I don't need to cut them as full pieces I can just split them in half and cut them as halves. And this saved me about 6 pieces of 1.5 millimeter plywood. I mean, you learn by doing, right? And so that's what I learned this morning. So let me flip this over to the train cam, and let's see if I can't haul out the piece that we're going to be working on without wrecking anything. All right. So I think you might be able to see me back here. Yeah. So on top of this is a 2-foot wide sheet of 1.5 inch thick styrofoam, and that is the base for the city up here. And the entire underground station or subterranean station sits under this. And so this actually lifts out really easily. I don't want to make a habit of having to pull this out much in the future. And so for the time being, what I want to do is I want to finish up the interior of it. And one of the walls in there is this little guy. And so this strip of styrofoam runs alongside one of the sets of passenger tracks, and I want to dress this up so that it looks like the rest of the exterior walls. I don't want to fuss this a lot, but because I have put a viewing portal into the station or the station platforms, I do want to do a little bit of work on this. The other thing is that I do have a bit of scenery paralysis insofar as I need to start painting those retaining walls. And honestly, because I've got miles of them to do, I haven't started because I want to make sure that I like the way it looks. And I've done a little bit of painting here, and I did a bit of a test paint for concrete on this little portal that I made, and I didn't like it until I actually gave it an ink wash, and so now I'm okay with it. So the thinking that I have is that anytime that I need to kill 20-30 minutes, I can come down and I can start working on figuring out the technique I want to use for painting concrete on the inside or the unseen parts of the layout. The other thing that I want to do is I want to figure out a better way to do graffiti. I've seen lots of different techniques, and I want to find something that is, I'm going to call it workbench friendly. Anyway, I've used paint markers before, and they're great, but they do sort of tend to blop and bleed, and they're a little heavy. The paint goes on quite heavy, and you can see the paint going on. I have used laser cut or 3D printed stencils, and I do like the results of those. But I don't like the fussiness and the work that goes into it. I want to be able to just sit down and figure out a way to just let my mind wander and do like graffiti or details or weathering. And so I have some ideas that I want to use with, let's say, glazing and just regular paint brushes. And I figure that the interior of the station is a great place for me to start doing that, because if it doesn't necessarily turn out, no big deal. And so what I'm doing, you have to pardon me for a second here today, is I'm going to start installing all these little guys, like that, archways, on this and the other piece, and hang out, listen to some music, talk to you guys, and have a bit of coffee. I run games, good morning. And the great Moa, good morning to you as well. There's something new going on in this chat, which is there's little crowns beside people's names, and I don't understand what that is. The great Moa, you can get water slide decal material that you can put through a standard printer. So yes, and I have purchased some of it. The challenge with it, or the challenge that I've had with that decal paper, is that it would make sense that you buy the clear water slide paper. We agree on that. But unless you have white ink and you're going to put it over, let's say, dark concrete, it's not going to show up. So the other option is you get the white water slide decal paper, but then what you have to do is you have to cut around whatever you're going to transfer very, very accurately. And I would like the lazy middle, which is I'd like something to print with white on clear and I can just slide it on and be done with it. But to your point, yes, it's out there. I've thought about that before. Off the main line, good morning. So I need to get my orientation in my head right. This is the face, this goes inside. So the fire platforms, the trains are in front of this. So I'm going to start in the close corner here and start applying these little bits. Let's take a look as the go doesn't even bother to stop, and Aldershot just races through. If I had a Cricut cutter. Well, interestingly, I do actually have access to a Cricut cutter. And I've thought about exactly the thing that you're saying. And again, the challenge is getting things to line up in registration. This is, and I've put a lot of thought into this because I would really like to just be able to hang out and do these sorts of things. Are we farming out experience points to watch me talk about trains? I mean, is it something to say if like you comment an awful lot, here you become a pro commenter? It's an interesting point. I feel like these trains are breaking the speed limit right now. Let me just turn these down a notch. So yeah, really nice day out today. The weather looks beautiful. So my house is incredibly sleepy right now still. There's no movement. And so I thought, I got up early, I was down here, I did a lot of tidying actually first. I think cleanup is sort of key because I'm really good at making a mess. And I'm looking forward to enjoying a nice day, but I thought, hey, if you guys want to jump on and we can have coffee and hang out, that'd be perfect. And so there's the first one installed there. So I have to do the inside of this one, and I've got another piece that I'm going to be grabbing as well, and I'll take care of that one. I have to do a little bit of fussing to get it right. Raining here. Good morning, Mr. M&M. So is there any credit, Mark, to the rumors that you are going to abandon HO scale and move to N scale? I think there's going to be some limitations for you. Raining and cold there as well. All right then, so it's just me who has the nice weather. Of course, that weather is also rather fleeting. By the time I'm done down here, I may return to the outside to find that it's poured rain. Cold and rainy in Ottawa. All right, so I guess apparently only the Kitchener-Waterloo region has got any weather of decent mention here. I was saying that I went down to visit the Burlington Model Railroad Club layout. It's a nice little layout to go visit. They've got a beautiful facility. It looks like it was probably part of the public rec department at some point in time, and so it's a nice big lot, and they've clearly filled in an outdoor outdoor pool. It's completely filled in, and that's where they put their outdoor layout. And then the building, which was probably the change room and reception area, is where they now house the layout. HO, they have a little N scale layout that they have tucked into, probably which was one of the dressing rooms at some point. You know what, it was really nice to go out and see this. Fun layout for sure. And they had changed part of it. I went back because they had this great section where they had done an elevated Union Station, pretty standard thing. And they ran some GO trains, and it was coming in and out underneath the station. And I'm really fascinated with the idea of the station above the tracks. And I keep finding examples. Mr. Pat Smith has sent me a number of videos or a number of links for me to research. Great stuff. But anyway, I went and visited, and they had pulled out or changed that layout, that part of the layout, to intermodal, which I think makes a fine amount of sense. Had a great little intermodal yard set up there. And so yeah, I'm still on the hunt looking for real-world examples of elevated passenger stations. And I find them more fictionally than I do in real life. You'll pardon me here. I got to be able to read the chat. Me and my friend have been working on an HO scale layout for the past few months, and everything is going well. Well, first of all, good morning, Matthew. I'm glad to hear that. Black coffee, should have known. I feel like that's a judgment. Black coffee, black wardrobe. Yeah, that's how we roll around here. But maybe not black fascia. I've had a really excellent series of discussions outside of the regular channels about fascia colors. And I think I've all but settled on the way I want to move forward. Right now, the next thing I'm trying to figure out is how to design the control panels. Because I'm deciding that I don't want to do it standing up. Like, I want to have a control panel that I design sitting at the layout, and then take over here, glue on, drill a few holes, and be done with it. And so I'm trying to rethink, or I'm trying to come up with an approach that suits me. You'll probably notice that there's a theme going through everything that I'm starting to do now, which is that I want to sit. Case in point, retaining walls. Let's jump over and see how the rail cam's doing. I run games. Have you checked out stations in Japan? Yeah, one of my guilty pleasures is actually watching these videos where someone sets up a cam on the front of the train and just runs it for an hour and a half as it goes through its entire route. Wonderful stuff. I remember this channel, Central New Jersey and N Scale. He painted the fascia of his layout white. I mean, okay. This sounds just, well, that's great for him. That is not, that's not necessarily what I would like to do. A railroad is a fictional company called the Ironwood Railway, WR, which they're a new railroad company, and the old layout was called the London and Palmerston. London and Palmerston. Are you familiar with Palmerston intimately? I am well aware of Palmerston. Much of my life before living in this region is certainly being well acquainted with the smaller towns in southwestern Ontario. So for anyone who's wondering technically what's going on, this is XPS foam that I've cut down as one of the interior supporting walls, and I'm going through the process of gluing on these laser cut archways, which have been made out of 1.5 millimeter, I think it's birch plywood. It has almost no grain to it at all. And I'm using my new favorite adhesive, which is Weld Bond, to put everything together. I'm not sure what the difference is with Weld Bond and regular PVA glue is, but when I was building some of the foam hills, I used white glue. I see a lot of people do it in the tabletop gaming, wargaming channels, and I swear that stuff never dried. Like, it's probably still not dry, but the Weld Bond seems to dry differently. So maybe it was just the difference in the application, or my experience is a little bit different. But for sure, I've been sort of a fan of the Weld Bond. Middle age comes for all of us, and the chair looks more and more appealing. You're not wrong. There is a reason this layout is about 6 inches higher than the last layout. You know, I'm not certainly tall, but I think you can see that on this stool I can roll under here, seated, and I only need to duck a little bit in order to do maintenance. You know, I'm still good enough I can get on my knees and do things. I don't want to. I like being able to get up the next morning and feel comfortable and spry and youthful. One of my favorite stations, yes, Kraus Rails, the, I don't know, is it pronounced Gare or Gar? It was one of the stations that I took a look at. Montreal's got several cool stations where the trains aren't entering platforms so much as buildings. Really interesting. It's, you know, stark contrast to, let's say, the Via Rail station in Nova Scotia, which is basically two wind-torn open platforms and a snack stand. Good morning, Mr. Approach Medium. We're just, Brittany was just popping by for a moment here. This is just me rambling on and keeping other people company on a Sunday morning. Usually downtime for a lot of us before the responsibilities of the day jump in, and got a bit of a camera watching what's going on the layout, and on the other side of the screen I am just putting together some archways that are going inside of the elevated station area right up there. And as I was saying a little bit earlier, I want to try to decide on the painting technique I want to use for the concrete, and this is a great place to do it. Inside of a station, it'll be dimly lit, and so I can sort of, you know, cut my teeth on figuring out a way that I can produce a lot of concrete quickly and get a technique down that, you know, I find acceptable. And thank you. Yeah, I appreciate the comment. I am getting pretty happy with the layout progressing. I added fascia boards, and that does make a huge difference. There is a station near Turin where the main building sits on a bridge passing above the tracks, but it's pretty old, and in Italy I don't think it would fit. Train station. Okay, so what I need to do is I need to write this down. One of the interesting things about these chats and these live streams is they seem to disappear regardless of the settings. So, Binaria Real near Turin. Thank you very much. I'll be peeking for that a little bit later. Let's throw back to the trains for a second so I can hunt for a bit of super glue. Oh. What is the music you're listening to? Oh, all right. That is an excellent question. So, there is a website called suno.ai, S-U-N-O.ai, and it is an AI music generator. And I set myself up with a subscription to it because some of the things that I do outside of my hobby require some of the music. And what I was finding is that there are some fairly predatory licensing models for music. It gets a little bit complicated, and I don't want to sound unsupportive of individual artists. That is not what I'm trying to say. But you can get a hold of music or license music, and it doesn't take much for the original creator, or first of all, you may have licensed it from the wrong person, and it doesn't take much for that to turn into either a copyright strike or a takedown strike. And so I have a subscription with it, and you can generate about 400 songs a month. And so I just put in some prompts for like lo-fi, trip hop, down tempo, pads, electronic, that kind of stuff. And it will pump out a 3.5-minute song in about 60 seconds, if not less. And so for purposes like the stream, then I collect them all up and I build them into, like, say, a 1 or 2 hour track. And that's what I let run in the background. So the music isn't amazing, it's atmospheric. And that way I'm not going to run afoul of taking some other artist's music or using music that has a copyright restriction on it. All right, halfway done there. Just throwing a little bit of the super glue on the wood joints. Let's see what else we got going here. Oh, if you wait 24 hours to 48, the live chat will replay. Okay, I didn't realize that. Thank you very much, James. I hope you have a lovely day. Enjoy church. Speaking to the earlier comment about middle age creeping up on you, I'm in this nomad's land right now where the glasses aren't exactly the right choice for doing work like this, but I certainly can't see the the chat if I take them off. This decision to stick with N Scale seems to be pure folly at this point. Matthew Harris, it's been so long that I forgot how to get into the model train hobby, but I'm really enjoying the hobby and building something that I like. 100% pursue what you like. 10 out of 10. For the amount of time you may actually share what you're working on versus the amount of time you'll spend working on it, 100% lean into doing whatever you want to do. I'm thinking that maybe it's time to pull the VIA unit in, and let's move to the maple leaf. Let's move to something, let's get the maple leaf running here. I'm curious if you guys can hear the trains running in the background. It's a sort of a dull sound here, but I'm curious if it's bothering you guys at all. Good morning, Chris May. Any tips on how to lay down grass on a layout and make it look nice? Well, I guess number one question is, are you using, let's say, ground foam, or are you going to use static grass? All right, so my P42 is just crossing over the switch points up at West Harbor. And so now you're going to watch me sort of move around on camera here, and I'm going to throw the points. And let's bring this back into the station. Okay, so just a pleasant little clicking, because that's basically what we've got here. So the trains are running by, and it's just sort of a nice little rhythmic sound. So our corridor train is now pulling in. Combination of stainless bud cars and LRC's cars. When Rapido releases their next round of LRCs, this little configuration will continue to change. And I can see that this picked the point. Of course it did. I have been backing these trains in and out of this switch non-stop without any issues. There we go. And so without using any indicators, what I can do is that there's a viewing portal over here that allows me to watch the train until it backs right in. It's probably a little unspectacular from where you guys are sitting right now. And there we are, we're in. So that is platform 3. And we're going to move to the newly added platform 0. And start our Amtrak Maple Leaf out towards, well, I guess New York at this point. Good morning, Chris, and good morning, Chris. Chris with a K, Chris with a C. Good morning, Griffey. All right. The Maple Leaf is working its way out. I'm just going to go along and make sure the points are adjusted correctly. Yep, we're good there. And so it's going to come along, and once it's onto the main line, I can throw the switch and move on. As for the question about the static grass, I've only used it a couple times. There are a lot of great videos on it, but I think what I've come to learn about the application is that it should be done in multiple layers, meaning that paint your area or scenic it or add contouring the way that you want it. Apply the static grass as per the instructions, lock it in place, vacuum up with a stocking, and then come back and do it again. Okay, the maple leaf is out on the main line. We're going to put it up a notch, and we're going to let that go for a little while. Matthew Harris, so many layouts. All right, back to here. Let's see if I haven't completely destroyed my paintbrush by letting it sit in the glue for too long. I use a converted tennis racket fly swatter for static grass. For sure, I've seen the videos. I purchased a static grass applicator, and I think it might have been on Temu, potentially. And full disclosure, it works great. And so I'm not trying to suggest to not invest in these things. But I thought, what could I lose for $20 or $30? And I've had zero issues with it. Now, this is not a high grass layout at all, but we will get to the point where I need to start adding some, and I'm really looking forward to it. Right now, this feels like a bit of a holding pattern. I think I had mentioned more than once that I really want to get the infrastructure of the layout done. In fact, I know I've said that a bunch of times, but just for the sake of conversation. And what this means is I want to get my bridges in place, I want to get my roads in place, and then once that's done, I can start pulling out little sections of the layout and saying, okay, this spot here is a little passenger platform, and I can start building around it. I find it's very challenging to see the big picture when it's too much of a blank canvas. And so doing things like these little retaining walls is repetitive and not quite as enjoyable as other parts of the layout build, but at least it gives me something to react to. Put my glasses down. Yeah, I made mine pre-Temu. Yes, yes, yes. I don't have a 3D printer or a laser cutter. I have to use the old method of gluing color prints onto cereal box paper. Listen, in defense of more standard accessible techniques, there's a lot to be said for it. I love being able to use the two tools that I have, laser printer or laser cutter and the 3D printer. I feel very grateful that I have them. I also work in an industry where I have been exposed to those sorts of things for a long time. And so the barrier for entry to me is not as high, but they also cause some serious frustration because if you are beholden to having to use them, you just can't run downstairs like I am this morning to do something, right? And so, you know, I fully intend that I'll be leaning into scratch building a number of different structures, either using kit parts or 100% from scratch, just so that I can be more immediate. I can come down here and I can just make something. For the time being, those tools help me get like these retaining walls done, and because they're a real lift, and I probably wouldn't do them if it weren't for the fact that I've got a tool to cut them. The other thing is that I wouldn't be able to afford to buy them. The laser cutter that I have was affordable, and it's already paid for itself. So But I am a big advocate of just do it from scratch. Cardboard boxes. I like to take the coffee stir sticks from Starbucks. They're wonderful dimensional lumber. Toothpicks, and the dollar store sometimes has square dowels which work out really well. Good morning, Mr. Sly Cash. Dara's Locomotive Shed. I use scale scenes, downloadable printable kits, and textures for scratch building. I would very much like to check those out. I think the one of the nice things about N Scale is that just a laser printer buildings and such are quite forgivable at this scale. HO, I think they stand out a little bit sometimes. That they're not quite as detailed, but when you get down to N scale, they're very, very, they blend quite well. The only criticism I've ever had of the downloadables is that it sometimes can be quite regional, and I understand that a manufacturer is going to try to come up with something that is universally interesting. I've been talking a little bit with, sort of on the same topic but not the same thing, I've been talking with Chris from Go Via or Go Home, and there is a real hole in the market for what I would call modern passenger stations. Last month, or earlier in the month, I guess, I was really, really fortunate that I was able to get a really impressive lot of N scale structures for a wonderful price from a very nice gentleman named Tom. And it came with a pair of stations, and I'm going to use one for my Aldershot station. Pretty standard fare. I think this is one of the only station buildings you can ever buy, and it is a great building. It 100% captures the spirit of so many train stations across North America, at the very least, but it's not modern by any means. And as Mr. Govia and I were discussing, it's hard to find a lot of modern things, and so even when it comes down to these paper downloadables, I find that they still sort of approach the safe larger market. And so this is where sort of the scratch building certainly comes into play, trying to find the thing that you need. Well, good morning, loving dem trains. I'm loving dem comments you're making. Pine Valley. N scale seems to be lacking a lot of modern structures and vehicles. Yeah, it's strange to me that I haven't necessarily reconciled about the fact that injection molding is so cheap that, for instance, there's a set of N scale, sort of N scale cars that that you can get real cheap online. Now they're 1 to 150, so they are a little oversized. And I mean, goodness, getting modern cars shouldn't be an issue, with the exception of there may be some licensing challenges that you're not allowed just to make, you know, a bunch of modern cars. But I mean, if I had my way, I would love to have like some Chevettes and some K cars, and you know, like the Lee Iacocca era of cars, like Trans Ams and stuff like that. I'm not worried about getting a new Lexus or something. I would like some sort of like classic economy Aerostar, Windstar sort of things. All right, so I've got the first strip of arches applied here. Before I set it back, I'm going to do a little bit of sanding with an emery board, and I'm just going to add the upright covers to sort of disguise those streams. Let's head back and see where the transportation is working. Chris May, happy 13th month anniversary. I appreciate you. N Scale may be difficult at times to work on, but given equal effort, the results are so spectacular. The vastness you can create an N. Yeah, Chris, I think that's the thing I like about the scale, is the trade-off that you can get bigger spaces. Anyone else getting ads running midstream? Ah, that might be a mistake on my end, and hey Mark, that will be a mistake on my part. I just set the stream up and hit go, and I didn't make sure that I turned off the ads, so I apologize for that. I'm not a big fan of ads on a live stream by any means. All right, let me find my emery board here, see if I can get this cleaned up. Interesting. Okay, I appreciate the ads feedback. I'll be sure to check on that next time. For anyone who hasn't necessarily done this before, there's a whole bunch of different features you set up when you do a live stream. I wish it was as simple as just live and go, and they are fairly aggressive about wanting to have ads running live streams, and you have to opt out of it, and so clearly I didn't do that this morning. So my apologies to you. All right, so I've just sanded these little seams. Again, this is going to be hidden under a city, so I'm not going to get too fussed about this right now. And time to get these last few uprights taken care of. Definitely going to employ the use of a laser cutter for my layout. I have a free access at the local library that I haven't used in ages. You know, when during the pandemic, which I consider to be the golden era of YouTube, so many people were at home and had time to kill, and they decided to start YouTube channels, and it was great. I mean, it really was great. One of the things that got really popular, of course, was the 3D printer. And it was just a race for, oh my goodness, I've got a 1K, I've got a 2K, I've got a 4K printer. Oh my goodness, they're coming out with an 8K printer. And given the choice, if I had to buy one tool that was outside of like the traditional sort of scratch building realm, it would be a laser cutter. The 3D printer is great. I think that I would not give the one that I have away, but I will not be upgrading it. I will not be moving to, let's say, a resin printer. I am totally satisfied with just a regular FDM printer. It has its limitations, and I'm fine to work within them. I was printing out some little stairwells. That's a great use of it, but I can also do that with a laser cutter. And so, ask me which one I want the most. Right now, I would switch over to a laser. Certainly never a resin printer. Well, good morning, Mr. Jason Jensen. Happy Sunday morning. Thanks for popping on. This is just for you, Jason, this is just an unplanned little stream. It's the idea that Sunday morning, there's a lot of people having coffee, maybe just want a little bit of company to hang out. So I'm invading your space and you get to invade mine. Have a great day, be on Ironwood. Clever Models Paper Buildings. And you can get the 3D by cutting multiple layers. Excellent, I appreciate that. Off the main line 2. What 3D printer do you have? I have an Ender 3 Pro FDM printer. I purchased it at least 3 years ago. Actually, it's probably closer to 4 years ago. It has been a very solid workhorse. I have replaced the extruder nozzles probably about a dozen times, and I added a direct feed to it. It was having some problems. I have replaced the build plate or the adhesion plate on it now twice. And so relative to what it's doing, it's been almost maintenance free. And certainly there is now new 3D printers that would eclipse the quality of things I can get out of this. But again, I can't see that I need more than it does for me, and the price at the time was hard to argue. I'm very happy that I have it. There is, because it is got a manual setup, like you have to manually set the leveling bed, those sorts of things, it can be a bit disheartening when the prints start to fail. And it's taken quite a bit for me to realize that fussing settings isn't worth it, replacing parts is. Like nozzles are, oh my goodness, you can get like a dozen nozzles for less than $10. So that's not a big deal, but as soon as a print starts to fail, troubleshooting it sometimes isn't the way to go. Just give in and just replace the part. What have we got going on here? Griffey, my layout plan is sort of like Brooklyn Docks, but trying to condense it into 4 by 4 feet. Brooklyn Docks. That isn't the sort of circular warehouse layout, is it, that Fast Tracks did about 15 years ago? I'm just curious. Trying to use it, the 140R turnouts, wow. I run games, yeah, there was a circular layout at a central building. It was a dock, and I think the guy's name was Tim Warren, and he is the owner of Fast Tracks, and I think that was his layout. Good morning, Mr. Max Homer. I'm building a similar dystopian layout in a future service. Love it. Based in Hamilton. Love it. So you're in the Hammer doing dystopia. That's not hard to do. God bless you, Hamilton. Any affordable laser cutter recommendations? No, I don't have any laser cutter recommendations. I feel like the market got a little bit flooded. The one that I bought was based on a coupon code that Steve's Trains had. It was a Friday night. I was watching his video. There was a coupon code that he brought up, and I may have been imbibing, and I bought it sort of on a whim. I don't regret the purchase. It was not a, well thought out purchase, so to speak. And actually, I didn't buy the correct laser. For what it's worth, at the time, you could get an engraving laser, a 2-in-1 laser, or a cutting laser. And basically what that refers to is how the beam spreads over time. So an engraving laser is sort of a wide beam. Think about like a hose attachment where you can spread it out. And that allows you to not burn a single line. It allows you to do sort of like a spread. And then, of course, the other end of the spectrum is the cutting laser, which is a razor-thin line, so you can cut. For what I'm doing, it doesn't really matter, but what I discovered is that when you're cutting something, let's say, a little bit thicker, that beam cuts in a pyramid shape, right, because it's spreading open. And so the size of the front of your piece isn't the same as the back of your piece. It was just a little thing that I didn't realize at the time, but again, it works really well for what I'm doing here. Okay, so there we go. This first wall now is completely put together. Each of these little sections is put in place, and I've got the uprights. And so I'm going to throw that back up, and I'm going to get the other piece and bring it down here. Let's see if you can see me on the train cam. All right, so this comes back up inside here. And I'm going to take out this next piece. So this is the next little piece. I don't have to do the whole thing. Let's see what we got going on here. Oh, okay, here we go. Any affordable laser cutters. Right. Filament printing did my tiny bound. Just couldn't get it set up right where I plugged in resin and worked. Yep, exactly. Unless you don't have your FDM printer dialed in, it can be infuriating. I did have a resin printer. I bought a resin printer. I think it was a Creality. I used it twice. I was not happy with the mess or the smell or all of the other work that went into it, and I gave it away. I wasn't interested in that. It just was too complicated. My FDM printer sits up beside, I get to work from home a few days a week. It sits beside my office desk, and so I can just fire it up, print some stuff up, and keep pulling them off the build plate. Chris May, I also have an Ender and I replaced the print heads. Yes, it's so cheap. Rub the build plate with glue stick for better adhesion. I also found that hairspray works really nicely. Ian Rice's Cold Port in HO. Speaking of the smell component, there are only certain times of day that I run the laser cutter as well. It makes me fairly unpopular in this household, rightly so, when I use it. And so I am very, very particular about the times that I'm running it. Okay, I'm going to try to get these things put on here as well then. I'm building, okay, off the mainline trains, good morning. I'm building a layout similar to Steve's trains 2x4 foot multi-level layout, and I haven't used a single bit of foam. For what it is, XPS foam is too expensive. Yeah, retweet that. XPS foam, I couldn't get over the cost of it. I don't understand. It must be wrapped up in the cost to ship it. Who knows? Maybe it's just too expensive per volume. But when I take a look at, like, imagining how much it is to sheet a house with that, at $25 for a 1-inch board, it's wild. Good plywood is cheaper than foam. Off the main line, I only used plywood and various pieces of pine. It turned out really well. That's good. Sound is turned off. James, are you sure it's not maybe something on your end? Because I feel like people can hear me. Yeah, it's hugely expensive. I think also due with the old stuff being banned in some place, it had to be reformulated. For what it's worth, I did, the previous layout, I got the open cell foam, you know, the stuff that if you hit it with a saw, it explodes into white dust everywhere. And you know what? That wasn't a problem. It cuts really nicely with a hot wire cutter. And I think at the end of the day, it is just as good as the XPS stuff. It is just that the cleanup is such a wild headache that it's not worth it. I think the other thing you can do is that a lot of you can get packing foam all the time. In the area that I live, so up here in southwestern Ontario, Canada, new builds have insulation requirements, and one of the ways that you can get the appropriate insulation rating is that you can build a house with 2x4s and put 1-inch foam on the outside, or you can build a house with 2x6s and put like rock wool or something inside of it. And so if you can find a new subdivision, you want to go for a drive in the early afternoon or late afternoon, you can find usually lots of foam chunks in the dumpsters. It's free, just take it. I suspect that someone could get their nose out of joint about that. I'm just saying it is an option in order to get foam on the cheap. Have a lovely day, Mr. Great Moa, with your family, and I hope you enjoy your brunch. Nothing like a little bit of cantaloupe mid-morning. Off the mainline trains, those little foam beads that come from the white foam are notorious for sticking to absolutely everything. That's static electricity. You are correct. They seem to be only second to the glitter that comes on toys. When they were younger, my daughters would get toys that had glitter on it, and there is still glitter being vacuumed up from the carpets. The Great Moa, thank you very much, and I hope you have an amazing day. Ah, Father's Day brunch. Off the main line, I despise glitter. Yes, there will not be a lot of glitter on this layout, but definitely it still exists in this house, and we are easily 10 years out from the last time anything glittery came in here. Sort of like when people want to give you birthday cards with glitter on them. You can leave. You're not welcome. Every dystopian landscape needs glitter. You know, if glitter represents the fall of mankind, then absolutely. And Chinese lanterns. All right, so that is the second part. And so the piece that I just finished comes in and mates about there. I'm not too fussed about getting that right because I'll fill it out with some leftover bits of wood. But for the time being, that basically captures what needs to be done there. So I just need to clean this up a little bit and add a few of the supports. Glitter implies radioactive fallout. Well, next year, if someone reminds me, I'll do a garbage gondola that ships only glitter. A glitter gone. Glitter be gone. So in terms of Zombie Gone, I'm already thinking about that. I'm sure some of you are maybe familiar with people like Scott Rails. And they have a semi-permanent, or he seems to have a semi-permanent webcam sort of setup. How do you guys like moving back between my bobblehead and maybe some running trains if I had additional angles? Is that something that appeals to you guys? Because I don't want to necessarily invest in a whole series of cameras, but there are affordable cameras out there. How tall is the wall you're working on? Okay. So the wall I've got here in front of me, Jason, is 75 millimeters tall, or that is 2 7/8 inches. This is not as tall as the retaining walls that you can see on this part of the layout. They also are built up by the thickness of the thinner foam. This is 1.5 inches. It's 1-inch foam. That's the decking on top of it. I've mentioned this before. The area that I'm loosely influenced here in near Toronto uses a lot of what we call brutalist architecture, so heavy-duty concrete forms. And the area that is around Union Station is sort of like a valley of concrete, several stories tall. So in this case, 70 millimeters is roughly 34 feet tall, 35 feet tall. And the rest of it's getting a little closer to 100, so that's between 40 and 50 feet tall. So that's the rough dimensions of what these walls are. Okay, so that's basically done to the point that I need it done. So I think I'm going to pop this back into the layout. All right. So what I'll do is that when we finish up here, I'll make sure to take a quick picture of what we got accomplished this morning and let you know, because you know it's riveting television to have me work on something and then hide it behind myself. Have a great day, I Run Games. I think you should get into one of those rail-side cameras for track days. Yes, Chris May. I bought some Tapo C100 to experiment. I think he may use some different views are cool. Might be nice to live. Yeah, I think that Go Via or Go Home has a very nice set of cameras, and I was looking at the idea of maybe investing in Bluetooth or wireless webcams, and the price is very high. Like, I won't be doing it. And so you can get some relatively inexpensive security cameras, $20 or $30 a piece. And so the idea was, well, do I mount those up inside the lighting valence and just have those sort of as a permanent setup? It's just something I think's entertaining, and I appreciate the fact that, you know, as I keep working on this layout, I realize that there is an entertainment component to it, which is I really do like hanging out with you guys and having these conversations. And if there's a low investment of adding a couple extra cameras that are almost permanently mounted, that seems like a really good use of, you know, time and energy. Yeah, the to approach medium, my webcam that I'm using is that brand as well. Or just get a Logitech 4K, yeah. Many also have the 120-inch base can be removed to just with cables. This is great. There's some apparently there's a number of people here that know about this stuff. Well, it's coming up on 10:45. That's everything taken care of on the workbench. Tools are down. Definitely the coffee is cold. So you know what? Thank you for keeping me company. I think I'm going to call it a day. And I hope to see you next time. Have a great rest of your weekend, and I'll see you really soon. Thanks a lot, guys.